he went back to sleep, having apologised to me, and you know, I don't know why I did this, but I was cold and I was tired and I wasn't thinking straight. I climbed in bed next to him, fully clothed, I might add, and the idea was that I was going to get warm and then go off home on the walk, because after paying for a taxi back to his, I actually couldn't afford to get another taxi, and you know, there was no offer of him paying it back. Anyway, he was asleep, so I put the duvet over me to get warm, and because I was so tired, I actually fell asleep next to him. And I woke up a little while later, and we spent some time at his place, and we talked about it a little more, and I was still feeling very shaky, and I don't know, again, I don't know why I did this, but I stayed with him whilst we watched Misfits, because it was something that distracted me, took me away from the situation that I was in and took my mind off of it, and I still wasn't feeling up to walking home, so you know, that was probably a godsend really, having my mind taken off of it, because by the end of that I felt able to go home, and I picked up all my stuff, managed to walk home, got home, still felt really shaky and I couldn't figure out why, and this was New Year's Eve, and I'd got him to promise me that he wouldn't drink that night, and I texted someone who was going to be at the party he was supposed to be at and said to them, can you keep an eye on him for me and just make sure he doesn't drink, because he's promised me he wouldn't. And sure enough, I get a text back a few hours later saying that he'd already started on the drink, so you know, at that point I thought, well, our friendship must not mean that much to me if he's made this empty promise to me after I told him about what he did. And I started to get upset again, and then I had a panic attack, and I started crying and I couldn't calm down, and I didn't know why, so I knocked on one of my housemates' door, and she asked me what was wrong, and I went over the events of the previous evening, and she said it sounded like this guy had tried to rape me, and it wasn't until somebody else said it that I actually thought that that was what had happened. And I was like, I didn't know what to do, so I called the police and I spoke to them about it, and they gave me the numbers for some support lines, and they used the word rape as well, which meant that, you know, even though I'd been thinking that it might have been that, it wasn't until they said it that I actually felt vindicated, thinking that before that I thought I was crazy, that I might have led him on. That my previous behaviour towards him might have given him the idea that, you know, I wanted sex, and at that point I really hadn't wanted it. I was asked by the police if I wanted to press charges, and I said no, because he was quite young and he was still in university, and despite the fact that he had really fucked me up, that he'd upset me and knocked me back and made me doubt myself, I didn't want to ruin his life, because even going to court on a charge of rape can really mess up someone's life. It can affect your career, it can affect your friendships with people, and it can really just effectively end your life. So, you know, I said no, and instead decided that I would go talk to him again, and this was because the police had asked me some questions that I didn't know the answer to, but he would, and I wanted to ask him those questions. And if we had gone to court, I wouldn't have been able to ask him those questions. So anyway, a week after that event, literally a week after, I arranged to meet him in a public place because I didn't feel safe being in a non-public place. And I sat down and I chatted with him, and I gave him the number for an alcohol abuse centre, because it was really obvious to me, if it hadn't been before, that he had a problem with alcohol. And I spoke to him, and I asked him what he was doing about it, and he said he'd tried to come off the alcohol before and had problems doing it. So I offered to help him and said that if he wanted to go to meetings, if he wanted to talk to a counsellor, I would go with him. And you're probably thinking I must have been out of my mind, but you know, there we go. Anyway, we proceeded to chat, and we moved location because the place